Hello, folks. In our previous series, we talked about the starting to get into training at 2 years old, and then I mentioned I would go into history so we can kind of give a better idea of how to train Alaskan Malamute. And so I'll throw a few pictures up here that Ernest de Koven Leffingwell took around 1907, 1908 when he explored Arctic Alaska. And you can see some of his Malamutes in these photos. But I just want to kind of go over the training a little bit more because it's very important to know this when you're training Alaska Malamutes. And I do have a funny story this morning. I just acquired a beagle. I love beagles. They are the most fantastic dogs. And I had beagles when I was a kid. And I remember my first time hunting with beagles. I hunted alone. My dad gave me a 22 caliber rifle and a handful of shells. Now I was 8 years old. He said, take the beagle out and get some rabbits. In those days we hunted for meat and for food, and like our coonhound, I hunted for income. Is a source of income for me when I was a kid. But anyhow, I'll get back to this beagle story. And so I learned back in those days that in order to really be a productive rabbit hunter, for my beagle to really get the rabbits, I just had to keep my mouth shut and keep silent. And he amazingly did an amazing job. But as soon as I started giving commands and telling him what to do and stop, stay, this kind of stuff, he just could not hunt rabbits. And when we give commands to our dogs, it stresses them out. It raises their stress level, their heart rate, everything. And why is this? Because they already have the instinct in them. Beagles are, I don't know, 2,000 years old, I think I read someplace. So they have this ingrained instinct in them. And it's funny because this morning he was sitting on his blanket in the living room, and suddenly he just woke up, put his nose to the air, and started baying, kind of like howling. And he ran into the other room and looked out the window, and there were three rabbits. Incredible nose, incredible. He smelled those rabbits through the screen window, which is, it's just amazing. So it kind of gives an idea of when an ancient dog, is ingrained with a particular, like a beagle's instincts, been trained to hunt for thousands of years, a couple of thousand years. It kind of shows you how their instincts, even though he has never hunted rabbits before. This beagle has been a family dog. He's 4 years old, and yeah, he knows. He just naturally knows. When I was a kid, I had the beagle for hunting rabbits, and later on, as I grew older, I acquired a lot of dogs, coonhounds, Irish setters, golden retrievers. Oh, I had a dog for each species to hunt. I would never take a beagle to hunt pheasants. I just sure he would do it, but he wouldn't be that good at it. And the same thing with, like my Irish setters. I would hunt quail and pheasants with them. I wouldn't take them coon hunting, whereas my coonhounds only hunt coon, and that was it. Um, so, and Alaskan Malamutes, they naturally, knowingly, instinctively know how to pull. Um, we need not to burden them with the stringent, you know, training that they use on like the Iditarod or any Alaskan Husky. You got to remember, Alaskan Huskies are not natural to pulling. They're not natural to the winter environment. I mean, that's why they're wearing booties and jackets and scarves and everything else. And so the mushers have to train them to pull because they don't know. They don't know. Their bloodline is so mixed. They have, German short-haired pointers. I mean, they're hunting dogs. They naturally know how to run. I mean, you put a harness on a husky and they take right off. It's no problem. But as far as what I'm trying to say is they have to be conditioned. Um, the musher has to start out with running them a few miles per day, then increase. Otherwise, they will collapse. The Alaskan Huskies are notoriously for just running until they collapse. I mean, that's just how they are. That's how they're wired. That's what they're bred to do, and this is why we have, like an Iditarod dog. They have dog drops where the dog is too exhausted to go on. They can fly them back or fly them back to the city or wherever they came from, the owner's kennel, and they can keep going with the race. Um, and this is one of the reasons why they have to condition the Alaskan Huskies, but not so with Alaskan Malamutes. They're draft dogs. It's inherited in their DNA to pull heavy weights, loads. Of course, you want to get them in shape, but you don't have to be running them every day consecutively, day in, day out, to condition them. There's a difference between training and conditioning them. The Alaskan Malamutes, it's in their DNA, and they know what to do, basically. That's the bottom line. And they're not going to run till they collapse, but if you take them to that point, their mindset will change, and they will say, okay, next time I'm not going to pull that hard. And, that defeats the purpose of Alaskan Malamutes. Is they're draft animals. They want to pull hard. They want to pull heavy weights. Yet if we ruin that mindset and they don't, and they quit doing doing what they love to do because they were injured or overworked, then it kind of defeats the purpose of having Alaskan Malamutes. We might as well just have Huskies and go from there. I wanted to mention this because so many people are driving their Alaskan Malamutes with such hard training and so unnecessary, and they're ruining their dogs. Those dogs will never pull to their full potential because of that. And I talked about this yesterday of how, basically they get burned out. They will hold back. And this is what you want for a long distance racing dog, is to hold back. But you don't want this for an Alaskan Malamute, which is not a racing dog. He's a draft animal, and he wants to pull heavy load. This is what his desire is. It's just like a beagle wants to chase rabbits. An Alaskan Malamute wants to pull heavy sleds and loads, and they want to break trail. This is what they want to do. And what we're seeing nowadays is just they're put in races, they're put in a team of Huskies, and it's just ruining them. And also, unfortunately, people are changing the structure build. They're breeding them to be smaller. there goes Rocky, my beagle. You probably hear him barking. Okay, I'm back. I think I got Rocky settled down a little bit. But I was talking about the how a lot of the breeders are actually changing the structural build of the Alaskan Malamutes. The show ring breeders are basically making them, bring them narrow shouldered, so I don't know how else to say it. So they have a prettier gait inside the ring, and of course, many Alaskan Malamute breeders are breeding them narrower and smaller to accommodate racing. Nonetheless, it doesn't matter what kind of Malamute you have. You still got the Malamute brain and the Malamute instincts, and regardless of his size, he still wants to pull, and he wants to pull hard. It's just like a beagle. There's all sorts of sizes of beagles, but they all have the same brain, same instincts. They want to hunt rabbits. They just love chasing rabbits. I mean, there can be ducks swimming around in the pond. It doesn't matter. My beagle doesn't care. Rocky doesn't care. He just wants those rabbits. And When I was a kid, I used to love hunting with my beagle. I mean, he taught me a lot. I started hunting at age 8, like I said earlier. Had a little single shot 22 rifle, and uh, and that's what I did until I acquired all my other dogs. But so I've been training working dogs for, like I might mentioned earlier, another series of 57 years, I guess. It's quite a while. But I've learned that all we're doing is nurturing their instincts, and I hate to repeat myself about that, but that's all we're doing. And so with Alaskan Malamute, we need to do the same. Um, it's interesting when I'm running my team of Malamutes. I don't I don't say anything. I'm silent. And if I do say something that, let's say I'm actually on the sled, which I rarely do, but let's say I'm on the sled riding down a hill on and I cough, and they're stopped. They're saying, "What was that all about?" They think, they're always in tune to our voices. They're just in tune to us. We are their world. We don't need to be a dictator. On our, we need to just nurture their instincts, nurture their love for us, and this is how we train them. Um, and the reason I'm saying this because like I said earlier, I'm watching so many Alaska Malamutes thrown in the team with some Huskies and basically forced to run faster than what they're comfortable with. And then, of course, they're running with their tails down or not. I just want everyone to see and enjoy and experience these Alaska Malamutes as they truly are. Of course, now that we are getting smaller Alaska Malamutes with narrow shoulders, they're going to have a faster gait. They're going to have the faster pace. So, um, nonetheless, they're still going to want to feel some resistance. It's just how they are. And luckily, the Alaska Malamutes naturally, most of the bloodlines run with their tails up when they're happy and healthy. And their tails would drop when they're injured or they're just not enjoying themselves. And so fortunately, we have a good way to tell when we're doing something wrong with Alaskan Malamutes. Whereas Alaskan Huskies, they always run with their tails down, and the only way you can tell if they're being, uncomfortable or injured by looking at their faces, we can tell by their facial expressions. But we have to stop to look at that when we're running a team. So look at their tails. And because Alaska Malamutes love resistance, if you notice, when we run them on groomed trails for long distance, their tails will drop. And this is what we have to, consider. As soon as they drop, we're doing something wrong. And if you want the best performance from your Alaskan Malamutes as a draft dog and want him to be happy and have longevity, we want to make sure that tail is always up. And the problem is when we're running on groomed trails, there isn't enough resistance and they get uncomfortable. And this is why their tails drop. And we need to stop and figure out, okay, how can we get resistance? I drag tires behind my team. That's a good, consistent resistance. You can put a lot of weight in your sled, but then you got a jerky action. Every time it goes over a bump or in a dip, it's going to jerk. What we want is a good, solid resistance. And so we can adjust that resistance by watching our tails. When we can run our team and their tails are up the entire time, we hit the right combination of resistance and speed. So this is just one of the ways we can train them. But if you notice, this has nothing, if you're running in a race, you can't do this. And your dog's Alaska Malamute tails will probably drop and they will be uncomfortable and they will start holding back on the next time we run them in a fast pace, and once they start holding back, it becomes ingrained in their neural pathways, their brain. They will continue to hold back, most likely for the rest of their lives. And if I ever allowed this in my team, I wouldn't. It would be literally impossible to travel across the Arctic the way I do, because then they would hold back, and what would happen is we would run in deep snow, 3 feet, 4 foot snow, and they would stop because they're holding back. Um, and then I would be stuck, we would be stuck, and we would be in serious trouble. And this happens actually to a lot of husky teams in Alaska. They get way out, middle of nowhere. It snows a few feet, and those dogs will not go through that because they're trained to hold back, and they will not exert their full potential energy. They could do it, but they won't do it because they've been trained otherwise. And so they have to call for help and be rescued by snowmobile helicopters. So this is not what the Alaskan Malamutes are. They are draft dogs, and we need to nurture that desire, that energy to pull, and that's what they love. This is their love. I mean, they love to pull heavy weights. And like I said, watch their tails. It's very important. Watch those tails. When they drop, slow them down, put some resistance on them, whatever, and then just start all over. But don't let them drop for very long, because as soon as they do, for prolonged periods, they will start holding back, and you'll never see them pull to their full potential ever again for the rest of their lives. And I'm seeing this so much in so many teams nowadays. Racing has just taken off. People want to race, but we don't need to race Alaskan Malamutes the way the way they're racing. We can have freight races. We can have carts where they're hauling a lot of weights and kind of, but they're not racing dogs. And this is what I'm trying to tell people, that these guys are not racing dogs. It'd be like taking a Clydesdale draft horse and put them in a Kentucky Derby race. I mean, it's the same difference. It would definitely damage him physically, mentally. And this is what we're doing with Alaska Malamutes. So I know I got away from the history, but at least you got some pictures to look at the polar regions of Alaska. And the polar and the Arctic regions are different. The polar, there's not much snow. In the Arctic regions, there's a lot of snow, and the Malamutes originated from the Arctic regions, where there is a lot of snow. And so we're going to go through this. We have to talk about the environment, really get down to the reason why they're built different and why they need broad shoulders and large bones and paws, and why they have the mentality, the mindset to pull hard. This is what they love. And so it's getting late, but I'll get back to you soon in a few days. But until that time, God bless.